Which begs the question, what will the impact be on Alvin Kamara as we take a look at some of his highlights? Saints at the Panthers, gets the handoff, runs up the right side, shakes off James Bradbury for the first career touchdown.
One of the more underrated things about Kamara is how hard he is to tackle. Everybody thinks he's like a scat back, but he's very, very difficult to bring down in the open field.
Well, he is, and to that point, this will indicate his athleticism. Kamara gets the handoff, leaps over Darius Slade Jr.
Matthew Berry did that on his way into the studio today.
He did?
Yeah, but I forget who it was who was jumping over.
Well, he made it.
Diana. No, but, you know, the fact of the matter is that people talk about him as kind of a scat back, a third down back coming out of Tennessee, and it was Sean Payton seeing him in training camp realizing how many gears this guy has. It was one of the reasons why it didn't work out for Adrian Peterson, is because they knew they had something special in Alvin Kamara.
Well, they did, and they showed it. Week 9, Bucks at the Saints. Kamara, the swing pass, and he just takes off. Justin Evans will try to take him down, but he will fail. Kamara stays up and ends up in the end zone.
Pretty amazing. I mean, yeah.
Which he did. I'm just going to say, his scoring was unbelievable. Alvin Kamara scored a touchdown on 6.5% of his touches last year. The running back average, 2.9%. Just to give you an idea, guy has a nose for the end zone.
Redskins at Saints. Kamara gets the pass on the running back option. He bobbles the catch, but he brings it in. And you talk about a nose for the touchdown. There he goes.
Yeah, and that word touches, not just rushes, but the fact that he can score in the passing game as well as on the ground.
Sean Payton, such a creative play caller, finding different ways to get him in space, get the ball to Alvin Kamara, and then...
You remember this? The 75-yard touchdown run?
Yeah.
74, I should say, close enough. He's off.
And because of his versatility, it's so hard to defend him, because that was one of the issues with the Saints in previous years. Sproles would come in, oh, it's obviously a pass. Ingram would come in, they're going run, but now they've ingrained both guys in their passing game. So much versatility with Alvin Kamara. And you just
that's a rough Monday morning special teams meeting in Tampa Bay is what that is.
Yeah, better on the other side.
That was not a strong effort.
That voice you hear, of course, belongs to Matthew Berry, here to talk a little fantasy football. And it's been a week since the Fantasy Rankings Summit, and already we're having to adjust things, as is the case in the offseason. And we'll take a look at your list. Right. Kamara will certainly get a boost, I would think, in that early month, the first 4 games,
sure.
Matthew, without Mark Ingram.
Yeah, he moved up to number 6 because of the suspension to Mark Ingram. More touches for Alvin Kamara is a good thing. In the 6 games last year in which Alvin Kamara saw 15 or more touches, he averaged over 115 scrimmage yards and 24.8 fantasy points per game. Just to give you a comparison, last year Le'Veon Bell, the number 2 running back in fantasy, averaged 22.8 fantasy points per game. So more touches for Alvin Kamara, fantasy gold. We talked about the touches, though. We do expect some scoring regression because he scored at such an unbelievable rate last year.
Yeah, I would agree. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the Saints throw it a little bit more this year, too.
Well, we pointed out they have a quarterback.
Yeah, and the early part of the season is going to be like a celebration of him, too, by the way. There's going to be some records falling by the wayside.
Some records falling, a new 2-year deal. So this has been adjusted, though, since Mark Ingram's suspension. So I say that because despite that, you have Saquon Barkley ranked higher.
Yeah, just the volume of touches with Saquon Barkley, because eventually Mark Ingram's going to come back and maybe that suspension gets reduced a little bit. But Saquon Barkley, first off, just being the lead running back in a Pat Shurmur offense is fantasy friendly. Make no mistake about that. Vikings last year were 100 targets to running backs. Of course, we're talking about PPR scoring here. They were second in rush percentage last year. The Vikings were when Pat Shurmur was in Minnesota and in Philadelphia. Both seasons, they were 6th in red zone rushing percentage, 6 foot 233, 4.4 40. Got a 41-inch vertical. I mean, just an unbelievable physical talent. And then in a fantasy-friendly offense, the volume there, he's going to touch the ball at least 20 times a game.
Upgrades on the offensive line there in New York with Nate Solder and then their second-round pick, Will Hernandez. They're hoping that helps. They haven't had a running game there in forever.
It's time. They're due.
He's supposed to be it.
And you think about how you defend that team. You've got guys like Beckham and Shepard and Ingram stretching the field, and so there's a lot of underneath stuff there for Saquon Barkley.
How about Christian McCaffrey? He rounds out your top 10, but my question would be about the arrival of C.J. Anderson, how that might affect McCaffrey.
Yeah, listen, it's not great. Obviously, we were expecting big things from McCaffrey, but I think you still are. Norv Turner, the new offense coordinator in Carolina, he is a perfect fit scheme-wise for what Christian McCaffrey does well. Remember, last year with Jonathan Stewart there, dominating red zone work, McCaffrey was still a top 10 fantasy running back there. This is a guy who last year as a rookie led all running backs in targets, was 3rd among running backs in receptions. So McCaffrey, who we know will make a big leap from year 1 to year 2, as all NFL players do, I think in this system, still a borderline running back 10. Anderson slightly better than Stewart, but McCaffrey improves a little bit. You figure he gets a few more touches. So McCaffrey stays at running back 10 for me.
When you look at his top 10, Matthew, who among them may have the most difficult time living up to their draft status, if you will? Because we know that's a thing.
Well, look, they're all awesome, which is why I have them inside my top 10. But to play along, if I have to pick one that makes me a little nervous, I would say Leonard Fournette. Obviously an amazing player, but you think about last year, 2 games missed because of the ankle injury, 6 games missed his senior year in LSU, same thing. And last year, he had those 2 75-yard runs, right, which were amazing. Take those 2 runs out, he averaged less than 3.3 yards per rush. Wasn't terribly efficient. Now, that should help. Andrew Norwell, nice signing for the Jaguars here. But Blake Bortles played well down the stretch. And does this team, who went so run-heavy earlier in the year last year, maybe open up the offense a little bit more with Blake Bortles? You know, they re-signed Marquise Lee. They added Dante Moncrief. They've got some nice weapons in that passing game. So does Fournette get as much volume as he did last year?
That's a fair question, I think. Dan, I'll ask the same question to you.
Pretty bold. Who in the top 10 might not finish in the top 10?
I know. So it's hard.
Sure you don't want to go all the way down to 10
10
just to be safe?
Well, listen, that's why I have Fournette at 9, and he's awesome. I love Fournette.
I want Todd Gurley.
Wow.
Not that I don't like Todd Gurley, and you're picking him number 2. I'm looking at a pattern of inconsistency. All right, last year, 4.7 yards per carry. The year before, 3.2. The year before that, 4.8. The year before that, in college, hurt. The year before that, 6.0. So I think he's a guy that hasn't really strung consistently good years together throughout his career, and that dates back to his college days, and so it gives me a little bit of hesitation. Everything was so great there last year for the Rams. And he scored 19 touchdowns.
He's waiting for the shoe to drop. The other shoe to drop.
You could certainly see scoring regression when we've seen people score over 18 touchdowns a year. 4 out of the last 5 have scored less than 8. So I understand that. I'm a Sean McVay believer.
Yeah.
I think a generational coach. So I'm a believer in that offense and what he did with Todd Gurley last year.
My point was, if I'm picking 2, I might be talked into David Johnson or Ezekiel Elliott over Gurley.
You're not going to lose your league by any of those guys. They're all studs, but give me Todd Gurley.
All right, well, and I bet we'll find him on this list, 11 through 20. And you have Dalvin Cook right up there, almost cracking the top 10. But are you confident about his health?
You know what? So far, all signs are positive. Courtney Cronin, who covers the Vikings for us, does a great job. She was at our ranking summit as well, talking about this. They feel positive about it. If there is a silver lining about his injury, it's that it happened early in the season, giving him almost a full year to recover. So we'll see when training camp comes along. But so far, all signs are positive. Remember, he was a running back 9 through the first 4 games of last year. And you heard Mike Zimmer at the Combine ask the question about, hey, Latavius Murray sort of came on. And he was like, no, Murray will get some, but they expect Dalvin Cook to carry the load.
Yeah, I think, what are we looking at here? Running backs in the 11 to 20 range? Are we looking at somebody who might go higher than their ranking? Is that the...
No, not yet. All right, here, I'll ask you a question, Dan. It's your turn.
You're asking me about Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
I think
I'll
Dalvin
ask you
Cook.
something else if you want.
I think Matthew Berry's extremely good at what he does, and he's well-informed, and everything he said about Dalvin Cook is accurate.
That's well done. All right, why don't I ask you about LaShawn McCoy, and if you think it might be some tough sledding at Buffalo?
I think there's a year coming where LaShawn McCoy is not LaShawn McCoy anymore, but by rights, it maybe should have happened by now, and it hasn't. So he could be one of those guys that sort of defies it. The problem in Buffalo is the offensive line. I mean, such turnover there. 3 spots turning over on the offensive line, including left tackle and center. They're just going to be really, really tough to score in Buffalo. Whoever the quarterback is going to be either a rookie or an inexperienced option. A.J. McCarron is the most experienced option there. So the Buffalo offense is a little bit scary for me from fantasy purposes. The only one you would like is that guy.
There's no question about it. What you hang your hat on with McCoy, obviously, is volume. Just the amount of touches he's going to get. There's a very good chance he leads the team in receptions. When you look at all the offensive skill players around, especially with inexperienced quarterbacks on that offensive line, there are issues there, a couple of retirements. So you could see pressure and then dumping off to McCoy. Worth noting, over the last 2 years, the only 2 running backs with 1,500 total yards, McCoy and Le'Veon Bell. So good. I mean, certainly on-field play hasn't diminished for LaShawn McCoy.
Listen, if you're playing fantasy, you got to think one of the better questions or one of the things you want to hear, who's the breakout guy here? Who will exceed expectations?
Well, all these guys here for the 11 through 20, I think you have got some really good names here. But if you want somebody that I think could jump up into the top 10, how about Jerick McKinnon? Money talks. Money talks. And there's a reason the 49ers made him one of the highest paid running backs in free agency, a perfect fit for what Kyle Shanahan wants to do with the offense. Over the last 3 years, with San Francisco and then as the offense coordinator is Atlanta, Kyle Shanahan's running backs have been top 8 in the NFL in receptions and top 5 in receiving yards every single season. They're so involved in the passing game. And McKinnon, who, once he got his opportunity in Minnesota, performed. I think that 49er offense takes a big step this year with Garoppolo having a full season under Kyle. So, yeah, I think McKinnon in a PPR format could sneak into the top 10.
You have to give your own answer for this one.
I can't believe he didn't take Washington.
I do love Darius, guys. I didn't want to be too much of a homer, but
you guys having a fight or
well,
something?
I will say this, though. I mean, PPR format, Chris Thompson's going to be involved on third down. I will say I am higher on Geis at 17 than I think most of my other fellow rankers. So, yeah, I'm very excited about the Redskins rookie.
I took this guy, Rashad Penny. Seattle took him in the first round. It raised some eyebrows. They took him because they really think he's a scheme fit, and that tells you a lot. Look, the opportunity is going to be there. Their leading rusher last year was Russell Wilson, the quarterback. Their leading running back in rushing yards was Mike Davis with 240. They had 4 rushing touchdowns, tied with Miami for the fewest in the league. And 3 of those were by Russell Wilson, and 1 was by J.D. McKissick, who's not really a running back. So there is a ton of opportunity for a running back to step in right away in Seattle and take it over if they can get the play blocked. The biggest if for Seattle the last couple of years. He could be in for a big rookie season.
Well, you think about them hiring Brian Schottenheimer as their offense coordinator, who has traditionally been run-heavy in his past. No Jimmy Graham, no Paul Richardson. They certainly want to run more this year, and Penny has the opportunity to be a 3-down back.
Speaking of the Seahawks, some news here from our Jordan Renan on free agent wide receiver Brandon Marshall. He is visiting Seattle, according to our Adam Schefter and Jordan Renan. He was cut by the Giants recently with a failed physical designation. Is there some fantasy value with regards to Brandon Marshall?
Well, let's see if he ends up signing with the Seahawks. But if you're on the field with Russell Wilson and you're 6'4", good things can happen.
Good things can happen.
Open in the end zone. He's going to be looking for somebody big down there. They did let Jimmy Graham go in free agency, so theoretically that would make some sense.
They signed Jerron Brown, Darba, the rookie coming into the second year. So they have a little bit of size, but not a ton of experience size. And Brandon Marshall is such a good threat in the red zone. It would certainly be very interesting if he landed in Seattle.
How often do you adjust the rankings? Every week or?
All the time.
Every hour?
Constantly.
I thought.
That's all he's ever doing on his phone. He's like, sorry, I got to adjust my rankings. I'll be right back.
Fluid. It's a fluid situation.
It's a fluid process.
Well, that's why we have Matthew Berry to keep us up to date. Matthew, thank you. I'm sure we'll hear much more from you as the summer goes on. Darius Geis fell in the draft last month, but his story began here.
My dad died when I was 5. I remember me and my brother was in the living room watching TV, and my mom runs in the house and turns on the news channel, and all we see is a bloody corpse.
You have a vision,